Okay, so tonight we have Michele and Gill.
Hello.
We will be talking about, well, we can't have any technical talk right now because you are probably a little drunk and tired after a whole day of good content.
I'm drinking water, so I can
Me
do
too,
technical
but
stuff.
It's vodka.
It is not. It is not.
So I thought we will be talking about how to become a better developer. Probably all of you want to become better developers because you are here at the developer conference. Probably some of you came here just for the beers, but I hope it's a minority. Beer only, yeah? Okay. And let me start with this, because there is a theory. I won't be telling who created this theory. There is a theory that a real, true developer should work for 8 hours at work, 9 to 5 job, or 8 to 4 job, or as I love, 7 to 3 job, and then go back home and learn for 3 more hours to become a great developer, a perfect developer, a really passionate developer. And with that thought, I will ask you, maybe we'll start with you, Michele. What do you think about it? Should a real, true developer spend 8 hours working and 3 hours learning
I don't
every
think,
day?
I don't think you can have a recipe for how many hours, because everybody learns at a different pace. Everybody concentrates in a different way. When I first moved from Canada to the States for my first real programming job, I worked insane hours because I had no idea what I was fucking doing. And I had to, right? That's French, by the way. So I worked extra hard to try to make up for the fact that I had no idea what I was doing, because I got the job over the phone and I said, yeah, I can totally do that. So my point is, I think you rise to the challenges that come to you, and then you figure out when it's time to relax. And you adjust your schedule according to what fits your life and your family. So for me, about 15 years worth after that, I moved to California thinking I would go to the beach every day, and instead I went to the computer, which is why I have no tan and hopefully no wrinkles. But the thing is, after doing all of that, I had a son, and then I realized, oh, I actually have to stop work at 3. So then I had to figure out how to fit all my work that I did 16-hour days, 7 days a week through 365 days, almost always for 15 years, and figure out how to fit that into, you know, basically an 8-hour day and a couple of hours on the weekend, or crunch time where I ignore people for periods, which happens. And you can do it. You can do it because it fits your lifestyle. You have to do it, you have to focus, you have to find a way to make it happen, but we all have crunch periods, and I think you have to find what fits your lifestyle, your comfort level, and what you want, yeah?
Well, but you say you have to find time and to find the balance, but actually this balance found you.
Balance
when
found
you
me
had
by having a
baby.
child,
Yeah.
exactly, because I used to skip lunches and say, no, I want to power through, and other people would take lunch breaks and hang out, you know?
And it was the same here for me.
Yeah.
I was working 16, 15 hours every day, including weekends, like you said. And it wasn't always working. It was also, you know, sharpening the saw. And then when I had a daughter, I needed to find some time to accept that I can't do this anymore, because then I will wake up after 10 years and see, oh, I have a daughter and she doesn't know me at all.
Yeah.
So it was having a baby for you.
Yeah, well, he had to know me because, you know, I had him. And then he had to have me around. And of course I did what was right. And
well, you know,
what I wanted to do,
can outsource it.
it's like a pleasure, right? It's like absolutely the best thing that ever happened to us as a family was to have a child. But it was hard because deadlines happen and you want to rise to those deadlines and you want to make the deadline priority because you're used to being that person, that one that, you know, sucks it up and gets it done and stays up all night or whatever. And you can't do that when you're up at 6 every day for getting ready for school, or, you know, picking them up at 3. So I you know, I make that work. I make it work by having crunch periods. I travel for work and I work extra in the hotel because I don't have my son with me. I am very efficient now. Maybe I wasn't so efficient before. You know, I would sort of sit in the office and I knew I had all day and I knew I could tell my husband, you know, I'm not going to go to dinner tonight. I'm just going to work through. But guess what? I probably wasted time, right? Because I knew I could.
Well, it's very interesting because,
Yeah.
like you said, you had 15, 16 hours before, and you thought you really need that. And I had the same. I thought I can't work any less until I did. And it appeared that actually I can do 10 or 5
You can do
hours.
more in less time.
Yeah.
You can if you focus. And I think when you know you have more time, you start to expand it and you research and you browse and you find stuff. And it's all good. It's good thinking. It's good learning. It's useful. But when you don't have the liberty of that, you start to realize, oh, wait a minute, so I can't be an expert at everything. So I'm going to pick the things I should focus on. And I'm going to be really good at that. And I'm going to be successful at that. But I'm going to have to say no to stuff. That's just how it is now, right? Like I have to actually say no to stuff, right?
How about you, Gill?
Well, I want to come back to the original point where you were saying you have to work for 8 hours and then learn and study for 3 hours. Well, I think from a pure perspective, I think if you have to work 8 hours and still study 3 hours, that means that your job is not fulfilling what you actually are looking for. Because if you come home from work and you haven't learned anything, well, I think you're in the wrong job then. Because if in an IT job, I think you should learn every day with what you're doing at work. And that should already give you a number of cycles in your brain that actually have given you something that have given you something.
You should be paid to learn.
Yeah, you should be paid to learn. And so I think if your company is just making money on your account by just making sure that you're billable 8 hours a day, every day for, what is it, 220 working days a year, well, I think something is wrong with the company then. Because if the company is not investing in you getting time off to learn, well, then something is wrong with your job.
Yeah, well, actually, I don't know how it is in your countries, but in Poland, I think it's sad, but it's true, like Metallica sang, that some companies think that they send developers to a conference once in a while, and then they come back and know everything.
Yeah,
they care about microservices, about Xamarin, they just go back and they know how to do it.
Yeah, it's the same with when you send developers. Some companies think that when you send a developer in a 3-day class, that they know everything about the subject, and that they're an expert, which is absolutely not true. When you do a 3-day classroom training, you know, depending on the technology, you know a little bit. And conference is, in my opinion, not a learning experience, it is a discovery experience. You will see things which are new, you will see things that other people are exploring and may also apply to your job. The conference is about expanding what you know, but not learning experience. And so that's why I say that, for example, the company that I work for, we give our developers a number of days that they can freely spend on attending training or learning, watching Pluralsight courses and that sort of thing during working hours. And if the company is not investing that in you as a developer, they're not doing a good job, because in some years you will actually be outdated completely. If they don't invest in you, well, then they're making a wrong choice. A developer has to learn lifelong.
I want to say that training is really important because it forces you to focus on a subject and learn from somebody who's explaining just that subject. However, what you said about it not being, you know, you're not an expert now, doesn't mean you couldn't be. The problem is today with all the security things and all the microservice platform things and DevOps things and problems that happen in production and DevOps, I mean, they're big data, you know, machine learning, all the things, just there's so much depth in each of those things. No company can have an expert at every single one of those things. And, you know, in my business, I every day work with people that know more than me on something, right? I'm an architect, I have things I know a lot about and things I practice day to day. But when I run into something that requires a team, I don't try to say, yeah, I'm going to bill and I'm going to do all the work. I try to say, okay, who could I bring in that would know that better than me, do it faster, get it done better for the customer, help de-risk the project. We'll all learn from it because they've been there, done that. the company and their developers will all learn from it because they're getting that guidance from experience, which doesn't mean you know everything, but you know enough to avoid the pitfalls or solve the problems when they happen. And everybody ends up learning, and I think this is a fundamental problem that we face today
Yeah, but
in
that
business.
actually brings it back to the fact
Yeah.
that if you're not learning anything in your 8 hours of work time,
Right.
then the job that you're doing
Yes,
is not
agreed.
okay. Because if if that doesn't bring you anything, any knowledge extra, and like you say, yeah, your team learns from each other, well, then they have learned and they don't have to spend another extra 3 hours a day learning.
Yeah, but actually, I think companies always often expect that when you go to a conference and come back, then you just go deeper into these subjects at home after work. And I thought it was perfectly okay. Now I don't. I think that we should be given some time during this 8-hour
I agree.
work.
I totally agree.
But does any of you in the audience have some time at work, a day-to-day job to just learn? Wow.
So
Okay,
you're
so-
in the wrong job then.
Goodbye.
Okay,
Okay.
we're done here.
It was nice talking to you.
Okay, yeah? What do I mean about learning? Okay, so you are learning by doing your work, that's great. But is it because you know too little? No, sorry.
Yeah. But if you're curious for new stuff that actually trains your brain in learning, that's what you need, and that's why I say that you have to be able to do that in your job. If your job doesn't give you, I don't mean specific days for learning, but if your daily job, what you do as a developer, as an architect, doesn't teach you anything new, then I think you're in the wrong job.
Yeah, but they all say that they do learn during their normal day-to-day job.
Yeah.
So we can talk about how to do it best, because you said something about watching plural-site courses, for example, and if I was a company owner and developers came to me and said that they want 2 days a month to watch plural-site courses, I would say no, because
Why?
you don't become better by watching courses. You become a better developer by doing stuff.
Well, if you watch the course and then use it right away, then you're using it practically, and that's the thing, right? So some people learn best by Googling for the odd thing and just figuring it out themselves and doing reflection and finding out how code works. Some people learn best by reading a book end to end and going, okay, I've really absorbed a lot. I think it's highly valuable to read books, go to Pluralsight, absorb all those things, but it's true that until you do it, if you're not going to use it right away, then it's still good knowledge, but it's not practical yet.
It's the same with the classroom training.
Right.
If you follow a classroom training for 3 days, you do some labs in that training, and you don't apply whatever you've learned in that training, it'll
But
go
that's
away.
why mentoring is better, because mentoring means if your company has this thing they need to get done, and they get it done by bringing in people that have done it before or have as close as possible to that experience. And what does that mean, bringing in people? It could mean nothing more than a POC that reflects a best practice, and then some time with your team, and then remotely talking here and there. I see that as valuable because you combine that with training, and now you've got something, because you're applying it to work, you're doing new things, you have a guide who's doing practical things, but then you have training for greater information, right? It's the best possible combination is all of those things together.
Yeah. The combination also, for example, what I see companies do definitely with people, with junior developers is also pair programming together with a senior developer who has done the task at hand already. That also is a great learning experience, because you A, have someone next to you who already knows it, and B, well, you're actually doing it and you see how it's applied. So that actually teaches you a lot typically.
Okay, so maybe how can we decide how much to learn or what to learn? Because there is this new saying, and I love it, that learning is the new procrastination. instead of doing stuff, you watch plural
You
site
learn
courses.
when you have
and
you learn when you have to deliver, right? So some people, maybe people we know, all of us know, learn by saying, hey, I'm going to go and speak at that user group. I have a deadline now. Or I used to do it by writing articles. I had a monthly article or something. It was the thing I had to do, I had to deliver. It forced me to do something. Or, writing a book would be a bigger endeavor. There's all kinds of ways to put deadlines in front of you, but if you don't have a thing to do that applies the learning, then you'll do it whenever, possibly. I mean, there are disciplined people out there, don't get me wrong. There are probably some people that could just say, yeah, I'm going to do exactly what I said. Tomorrow I'm doing that. And they get it done. Those are people that write great open source, for example, put NuGet packages up. Nobody's got a deadline for them. They're just doing it of their own accord. They're delivering, and they're learning.
But I agree with what you're saying, because if you write a book, I've written 2 books, and I think for me that was the biggest learning experience ever, because you have to do so much research. Yeah, you learn every nuts and bolt that is in the system. You actually have to explore it, because people are going to look at you as the person who's written the book, so you have to learn it.
But it's almost too much, right? Like, that's the extreme example, because at the end of the day, that's hell. Okay, I'm just going to say it. It's hell. It's like 8 months of hell.
Yeah, it took me
so,
a year to write it. So
that might not be for everybody. I don't think it's for even you or me. I think it's like, it was a thing you did because you did it, and then you went, why am I doing this? And then you finished and went, oh, that's awesome.
It's nice to see that book on the shelf.
Yeah.
Okay, but so a book can be one of the...
It's a driver. It's just an example of a driver, right? Get it done. Do stuff. Have a deadline.
So you have some knowledge, and then what is the effect? The effect can be a book, but not every single developer writes a book. So what can be the deliverable, the product of the learning process?
Blogging.
Blogging, yeah.
Speaking at a user group.
Blogging is great, because if you can structure yourself to say, once a week I'm going to blog something. It's going to take you 2 to 3 hours, possibly, depending how good you are. Some people, half an hour. It's what I did this week. Oh, yeah, I'll just write it up. But if you did that once a week, you could have a followed blog, right? Once a week is enough. I'm a horrible example, because I don't blog, because I'm always too busy with all kinds of stuff. I have lots of drafts sitting there in Medium that never get published, and they're just waiting for it to happen. So I'm a horrible example today. I was a better example, before, when I could work 16-hour days. So today, customer comes first, blog comes second.
Agreed.
But I'm saying, if you have a motivation to do it because you want to have a resume, self-written resume right there. I do stuff, right?
But it's still the benefit for the developer. What about the benefit for the company?
The company completely benefits, because you, as a person staying ahead, writing the blog, you're learning more insights, you're probably networking more, you're probably researching more, you're bringing all that information in with you when you do your work every day. And some companies actually like it for further than that, like promotion, networking, like bringing in other resources.
But you still do it after hours, probably.
Probably after hours, yeah.
What about learning during the working hours?
I don't think a lot of companies will pay you to blog unless you're like Scott Hanselman or...
Actually, I think it's more about company blog. But for me, a perfect example of learning during the working days, normal working hours, and the product of this learning would be, for example, if I need to do something and then I say to my, manager or someone above me that has to accept that I will spend a whole day learning stuff. Well, actually, that I will present some kind of summary of what I learned, and then the code to prove it. So if I need to do dependency injection in Xamarin, I will explore all the possible options, and then argument it in a written way, probably, and document it in some company knowledge base. It doesn't have to be a blog. It can be something internal.
What we, for example, do is when people explore some technology, like you say, dependency injection or whatever, we actually have within the company we call it Competence Centers, and a Competence Center is basically a group of people which get together every now and then regarding a certain technology, and they give internal company sessions. And that also
like
is a
a
way.
Lunch
internal
bags,
meetup,
they
yeah?
call it
Sorry?
sometimes. Lunch bags.
Yeah, it's actually in the evening that
Yeah.
we do it. So, but you could
Like
also
dinner bags.
Yeah, so it's basically a 1 hour talk. It A, spreads the knowledge within your company, so it's valuable for the company that you have spent that day researching that thing, and B, it also helps you as a person to speak in front of people, because a technical thing is one thing, but speaking about it and talking about it to other people is as valuable as learning that thing. And by speaking about it, you will engage other people in starting to research it, and the knowledge spreads within the company.
I like both of your ideas, but there's one flaw that I see in both of them, and it's not a flaw that's either of your fault, and that is those are both very structured and organized activities that then the company has to get behind. Whereas a lot of people maybe don't work somewhere that that's an option, and so you have to self-drive. And the self-driver is your own deadline, your own place to share your knowledge that maybe doesn't have a structure at work.
But we are talking
I know.
about
We're
during
talking
the
about
hours.
trying to do
We
it
are
at
talking-
work.
Yeah.
Well, so there's a sweet spot in the middle somewhere there. Like my first speech I ever did in 1998 was on stuff I did at work, right? So, I mean, I learned at work. I did stuff that was challenging. I loved it, and I decided to create speeches around it. So the speeches were the deadline that forced me to dig deeper, but I did all the work at work. And so I already knew and had a great foundation. So there was like an extra step I had to go through. And you know, we all know an hour speech can be anywhere up to 100 hours of work, right? Just to prepare slides, to dig deep, to have the depth of knowledge that you can be confident to speak about the subject. So you're not going to necessarily get 100 hours from your workplace on an hour speech. Like they're not going to do that. But if you have a foundation, maybe you get halfway there. The rest is you because you're passionate.
One of the things
and
that
passion is important.
One of the things that I always tell to people is, some people say to me, well, I'm afraid to talk about something that I don't know 100%. Because if they get a question, they're like, oh, I don't know that question, or may not know that question. And that is actually, in my opinion, not a problem. It's definitely nothing to be ashamed of if you're in front of an audience and they ask you a question that you don't know. You're not the guy that invented it. You're talking about it and you're spreading knowledge. And that actually also goes for in-company sessions, because I have a lot of people that work at my company and they say, well, I don't dare to talk about it because what if the people in front of me are smarter than I am? Well, A, they're coming to listen to you. They're actually there to learn something themselves. They're not there to actually make you go down the wrong path. So they actually are there to learn. So even if you don't know everything about a subject, it's still good to talk about it, because you will actually learn more because of the fact that you're talking with your peers about it.
Yeah, I don't think that it's wrong to go ahead and speak or whatnot without having all the answers. I guess what I'm trying to say is that you may have the passion to want to know more, but maybe not all of those more apply to work. So you can't necessarily get the work hours to do all of it. So it's part of your personal passion. I'm gonna play with that a little bit extra. So I think we're really talking about two things. One is, you know, do you have to work this extra 3 hours? No, I don't think so. Should you have to do it every day? Absolutely not. Does a person who's really excited about something feel like it's work to do that extra time? Probably not. I mean, I didn't, but I also didn't have, you know, a husband and a kid for a long time, and I chose that those were things I enjoyed to do, to stay home and tell my friends, yeah, I'm not going to go out tonight. I'm going to work late. I'm into it. You know, I dig what I'm doing right now.
And I
totally. I think it all comes around to what's your lifestyle, what fits, and getting as much of time as you can from work, because you should be doing something at work that's challenging and helping you learn as well.
But the question is also, where do you where are you at in your career, and where do you want to get in your career? Because for some people, a 9-to-5 job is totally fine, and why not? A 9-to-5 job is perfectly fine. Some people have the passion to actually dig deeper, like you say. So yeah, if you want to spend 3 hours a day exploring everything because you're passionate about it, well, it will not bring you anything bad. It will only deliver you good in the end, in the long run. So.
But then we are talking about the hobby, and we will get back to it in a second. I'm now just curious, how many of you have some kind of technical talks in your company. Wow, so you can do technical talks during your work? That's great. And those of you who don't, how many of you want to do this, would like to do this? Okay, so why don't you go on Monday to your manager and say, I want to do this because everybody at this conference was doing except me. And I have my company name written in the tag, and now everybody knows that we are the only company in Poland that doesn't do this.
Is your company not allowing you to do it, or are they not interested in it, or are they just, let us know why?
Well, they don't have the microphone, so.
They can come here and
It's telepathy. Wait, just.
Yeah, but they can. Is there no microphone in the room? No. There was a lot of microphones before, so.
They took it and left.
Okay. Oh, yeah, they just.
Okay, so actually, I'm very positively surprised by both answers to my both questions. So great. Maybe good companies send developers to .NET Developer Days for some reason. I would like to go back to the hobby thing that we talked about, because I once was a person who was programming and sleeping, actually, and that was the only things that I did. And what we are talking about now is if you want to spend additional 3 hours every day to work.
The microphone has arrived.
But we continued. Okay. If you want to spend those 3 hours a day learning frameworks, libraries, becoming a better software developer, I don't think that this is perfectly healthy. I think that we should actually, I do think that spending 8 hours at work, doing our work, and then spending 3 hours at home learning is a great idea, but learning something completely different. What do you think about it? Do you have some hobbies, both of you? Actually, my only hobby
What is a
was
hobby again? Can you remind me again? Because what's a hobby
What's a
again?
hobby?
What's a hobby again?
I have a list
Can you
of
buy one of
hobbies.
those?
I have a list of hobbies that are waiting in the wings.
Okay.
Because my current life gives me the hobbies that fit my life right now are helping my son with homework. You know, I mean, really, that's my pleasure, right? Like, I stop work for him, and I help him with homework, and I spend time with him, and I get him play dates, and I do all those things that help his life be better. And that's all I have. So there's a list of things like, oh yeah, I could play piano, but I don't.
Could you share some more
What?
things on your list?
Yeah, piano, I don't know, languages. I could speak better Spanish. I speak okay, but I could practice. I could go to school. I mean, I have tons of interests, right? If I had no job and I didn't have to work, I would never be bored. Like, there's just a ton of stuff. I would work out like 2 hours a day. I love it.
Okay, so let's stay here for a while. I don't want
I lost you at workout. We're done.
No. I don't want to go too deep, but you said that if you didn't have to work, you would play piano, you would learn languages, and so on. So if you didn't have to work, you wouldn't be doing what you are doing right now?
No, I would just have a lot more free time. I would still do stuff because I like technology, but I would do the things I choose to. I'd probably, if I didn't have to work, I'd probably write more again. I love to write, you know, do presentations around the writing and research, and then have more time for myself, you know, work out, I don't know, play the piano, have lunch dates. I never go on lunch dates. I work, because I have 7:30 till 3. And then everything else is like, if I have a little extra here and there, you know?
What about you?
Well, now that I think of it, I don't really have any hobbies, to be honest. So,
It's very sad.
yes, yeah, I don't have kids, by the way, so I'm just married with my wife, and so my wife is also
Your
studying.
wife is your hobby then?
Yeah, but she's also studying again. So actually, we both have our jobs and both have the time for ourselves that we actually need to spend separately because of work and because of the job and the studying. But Yeah, actually, my passion is still my work. So, and I do think when you have a child, that does change quite a lot. But since I don't have a child,
It doesn't change that you love your work, though.
No,
what
no, no.
it changes
But
is
the time
importance of fitting in something else. Whereas before having a child, I would be like, yeah, you know that dinner? I think I said this before. You know that dinner we're gonna go to? I'm not gonna go. And my husband would be like, yeah, that's
it's
cool.
much easier to cancel on things.
Yeah, I could cancel whenever I wanted and be totally fine because he understood. And now he still understands, but I can't cancel my child. I'm not gonna do that. I'll cancel a dinner any day of the week, right? Like, yeah, I'm stressed. I'm not going out tonight.
Yeah, I think that the very important and very difficult challenge is to ask yourself, if I had $10 million in my account, would I still be doing what I'm doing? Or if I had cancer and I had 3 months to live, would I still be doing what I'm doing right now in this extent? And I asked myself this question, and I said, hell no, and I quit my job. Do you sometimes...
And you quit your job, you say?
Excuse me?
You would quit your job, or you did?
I did it 20 months ago.
Okay, and what did you do afterwards then? Did you do the same thing somewhere else, or?
Well, no, it's not top secret. I don't know how. I live of blogging.
Okay.
And speaking and so on.
Okay.
It appeared that I like these things more than writing code, because after doing this for 11 years, I actually couldn't look at the code anymore. But, well, it's not important. I would like to ask you, do you ask yourself these questions sometimes?
Yes.
How often?
More often when, I'm now almost 40, so I think the older you get, you start asking yourself that question more often.
Because the closer you get to the finish line?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm just 38, by the way, so just 38, but yeah, I hope the finish line is still quite far away, but I think like 10 years ago I would not have asked myself that question, but now I ask myself that question, and what would happen if something happened to my wife or something, so I think that's life. So.
I will do this one last time. How many of you would be still doing this, what we are doing now, if you had $10 million in your account? Oh, great. Half of you. What about the other half? It's what was that?
They didn't get the question over there.
It's past 9 p.m. You don't have to be there. Ah, okay, they have beer, yeah. What is your take on developer regeneration, I would say? Taking time off, taking time to relax, and to actually ask yourself this question, having, for example, 2 or 3 days to come up with the answer. Do you think it's good?
Yes. That's a no-brainer. I mean, you're talking about people taking time off work, people having breaks. I mean, I'm happy to have a weekend off. And I think that's okay for me, but like, I have a lot of friends, you talk about 9 to 5, like, who preserve their weekend, like, there is no work on the weekend. I have other partners I work with that they always have at least one full day where they block it. You know, I have a different preference. I stop at 3 every day. I spend time with my son every day. And so I work on the weekend because that's how I make it up. But I don't work all day. I work half the day. If I stop at noon and it's a sunny day, I'm still winning in my book. But that's, I think we all have, you have to know what feels good for you. If I was unhappy with that, then I should change it, right? And I think if anybody's unhappy with the schedule and how things work and where you're trying to get to, and if you're not getting there, you have to sit back and change it. But you can't do that when you're in the middle of a deadline.
I tried that and it doesn't work.
Yeah, like when you're in the middle of a stressful situation, work, lots to get done, that's not the time that you can take a step back and go, what do I really want right now? It's hard to do that, right? You have to have a little contemplation, a free day that you can just sit and go, what do I want to do next? You know,
Yeah, I think it's extremely important.
You should always connect with that. That's definitely important. You know in your gut when you're not happy. And every time I've felt that, I've made a change. And that's absolutely critical. It doesn't mean you don't have times that suck, because there's lots of times a deadline hits me and I have to do what's right for the customer, and I do it. And I watch, you know, my husband take my son out to play that day, and I have to stay home and finish. But I don't let that happen all the time. I mean, it happens, and when it happens, I do what I've got to do. And then I say, how do I prevent that next time? Like, what can I do to get out of the loop, have other people in the project, whatever. Like, you always have to find ways to improve those situations that put you under stress, you know?
One of the problems that I see that a lot of mostly junior people still have, and people that haven't been working for a very long time, is that they cannot do that exact thing, because when their bosses or their managers just ask them anything, they cannot say no. They don't dare to say no. And that actually causes a lot of stress, because they think if I don't perform well, they will not get a promotion, or I will be fired, or whatever. And that actually can make you feel bad in a good situation, because there's so much coming at you at some point, and just learning to say no.
That was me when I moved to California.
I think we all were there.
I was afraid to lose my visa. I'm Canadian. I moved to the States. I got a visa, and I had like a crazy boss for the first 5 years or 3 years, something like that. And I worked New Year's Eve once. I mean, I went home to Toronto for 2 weeks and worked the whole time because something had to be done by January 10th. I look back at that and go, that's completely untrue. Like, it was a fabricated deadline by a crazy person that it didn't have to happen, but because I was so nervous about the visa and performing, I was like, I'm not taking a risk. Like, I live in San Diego. There's a beach over there. I never see it because I work, but it's there, and I'm staying. So that was my decision.
Yeah, it's a
right?
typical consultant's life. They see the world.
Oh, I wasn't consulting. I had a full-time job. Like, that was
Okay.
my boss. If I didn't do what he said, I didn't know if I'd lose my job. And it was a startup with not a lot of money, so I would be the first to go, right? Like, let the Canadian girl go. So it was important to me. Yeah?
I don't allow the junior developers on my team. Recently we had an incident that the customer said, well, they have to work the entire week, and I was like, sorry, they're not going to do it, because they've been working all week, making long hours. I said, sorry, no, they're not going to do it, because then what you end up with is a stressed out developer, and in the end it's going to cost you as a company much more than the deadline. And the deadline, like you say, was also fabricated for no reason. So I simply said to the guys, sorry, we're not doing it, and we'll do it on Monday. And in the end everything turned out quite okay, but they would have worked the entire weekend because they didn't dare to say no.
Yeah, okay. Michele already said that when she is feeling unhappy, then she makes a change. What about you? Do you sometimes answer to this important question, well, I don't want to be doing this, and what do you do then?
Yeah, I think that's also one of the things that when you get older, you make that decision more easily. Because in the beginning, when you start working, you will keep on doing things that maybe you don't really like doing, and that are putting a lot of stress on yourself. But I think the older you get and the more experience that you get, maybe your threshold also gets a little bit lower, that as soon as something goes wrong, you immediately start thinking, I have to fix this. And if you don't fix it, well, then you're going to end up completely stressed out and maybe going into a burnout. So yeah, you really have to do that. But again, a lot of young people, well, they probably won't do it as quickly as someone who has been in the industry for quite some years.
You know, there's another thing about this type of job that I don't know if everybody feels this, but I'll throw it out there. The work kind of is never done, right? How many times do you make a deadline and you think how long it's going to take to do something and it takes longer? Come on. Seriously, if everybody doesn't put their hand up, you're a liar. Everything takes longer than you think. Every single thing. Like, it's like you're done, but then now you got to package it and zip it and deliver it.
Well, nothing is ever finished.
Nothing is ever finished. It's like this cloud that follows you everywhere you go. So I remember one day my husband came from our work, and we hadn't had a child yet, and he was off early, and he's like, so yeah, do you want to go out? I'm like, yeah, I can't go out today. I have this deadline. Yeah, Monday I got a deadline. So it's the weekend. And he's like, yeah, well, I guess I'll go and I'll just do this stuff. And I'm like, look, I'm really glad you got lots of time off. Unfortunately, I have this deadline. And he's like, Michele, I save lives. He's a doctor. So I don't know what I really wanted to say to him at that point in time, but it was kind of a comical event for us, right? Like the idea that, you know, he's very understanding about my schedule, but he's got a balance in his schedule that doesn't exist in our schedule in a way, right? Like when he gets home, he's done, unless he's on call with the pager, but that doesn't happen anymore. So when you have a job that you can leave, it's really nice. And the best balance I ever had was when I worked for someone else, but I had like a CIO position, and that's all I did. I didn't speak, I didn't write, I took a break from that, and I just did Java and Oracle and crazy stuff that I came back to .NET after. And so, you know, our job is never done. You have to find a way to let it go, and you know when you can't. So, you know, you have to be able to separate yourself, and then there's these moments where you'll be like, you know what, I just need to get this thing over the hump, and if I don't, I'm not going to feel good today. It's better if I stay home. I'm going to feel worse going to that party today because I'm not going to be here with you. I'm going to be, my head's over there. And every once in a while that happens, and you know it, and you feel it, and you say, yeah, I'm staying home. I'm going to get this thing over the hump because I'm stressed. And then I don't feel stressed anymore when I finish that. But it also means to avoid that happening again, I have to plan better the next time. You see what I mean? Like, it's like you have these learnings that put you in difficult situations, but the only thing that will solve the problem is getting the work done at that point, because you've got to get it out. Yeah? I don't know if that makes sense. But
if you set a goal for yourself and you reach that goal, you have to relax, because otherwise it keeps on going and going.
Yeah.
And the same, not always.
Are we in therapy right now? I'm just wondering, like all psychologists out there, we're like in therapy.
Yeah, that was
stories,
the idea.
Yeah.
But the same not always happen. It's also for work, but also for learning. To bring it back to learning, because the learning in our industry never ends, and it should not never end. But you get a lot of people who get stressed out because I don't know this, I don't know this, I don't know that, and they make themselves crazy because they
have to choose now.
Have to choose,
and we didn't
have
used
to
have to choose. We could know one thing. You could know all of .NET in 2001.
Yeah,
and now you can't.
What I always say to people: focus on one thing. Make sure that you're an authority on one aspect, but keep the full picture in your mind, and make sure that you know a bit of everything, but focus and be known for one specific technology, architecture. Yeah, sorry?
Be an expert.
Be an expert in one thing, and make sure that people know you for that particular thing, and because otherwise you're gonna go crazy. There's so much to learn. It's impossible to follow along.
Well, and once you gain expertise in something, and then you move to the next thing, you will always have the foundation in the first thing, right? It doesn't go away. So generally speaking, you know, you understand multi-threading. Back in the C++ days, did a lot of multi-threading. I don't know all the ins and outs of all the low-level TPL anymore, because I don't spend time at that level of coding every day, because I'm up a level now, or 2 or 3 sometimes. But the point is, you don't forget how multi-threading works. You don't forget the principles. So if I had to, I could go dig in again. It's there. But same thing goes for security and identity. It's a foundation. Same thing goes for whatever it is that you've ever encountered in your world, like doing, you know, whether it's web development, whether it's back-end, whether it's, you know, I don't know, distributed communications, transactions, database. There's all of these things you collect as you go. You don't forget them. But you just might not be absolutely current on all of the things at all the times, yeah?
And just even programming languages. If you have to switch languages, if you have to move from C# to JavaScript, it's the same thing. You have to learn the syntax, but that's about it. All the concepts remain the same.
That's a very important thing. That, I think, oh wow. It's a very important realization that once you choose your expertise, you can always change it. It's not a decision forever. And often people...
I had Silverlight as my expertise.
Yeah, I was going
to
say about Silverlight, because people who chose Silverlight as their expertise, they didn't die with this technology.
I'm still here.
They just moved, well, to Xamarin, but...
Yeah. So?
Okay, no, nothing. I have 3 questions in my mind, but we have time only for one.
Okay.
So I'll do a random algorithm in my mind. We'll start with you, and you will have time to make up a hobby that you would have if you, yeah. Michele, do you think that being a piano player would make you a better developer?
I didn't hear you properly.
Do you think being able to play piano, if it would make you a better developer? And if yes, then why? And if no, why?
So, I'm not an expert at this topic, but I would say my understanding, especially having a child and learning about what's good for kids, is that live music, instruments, is very good for the brain, especially classical music. And so, yes, I think if I played more, it would probably be a different activity for the brain that enhances, just like if you play chess though, right? Like it's a different exercise, very different than playing a musical instrument, but it's all exercise that's not TV, it's not, you know, iPhones and tablets. I actually don't do a lot of those things aside from checking my phone for phone calls and WhatsApp. You know, I don't spend a lot of time on the computer when I finish work. I try to do non-device things, you know, aside from maybe, well, I watch Game of Thrones, other things. Yeah, I like to watch like a little bit of TV, like a movie, but not obsessively, you know. I prefer real things, real life, people talking, games, whatever, you know. And I think all of that is healthy, and music is really, really good for your brain, for sure, absolutely.
You still have 20 seconds to
20
come up with a
seconds,
hobby.
okay. I got something.
From my experience, I will say that I learned a lot about writing this year. I read several books about writing books. I read several blogs. I consulted with people who teach how to write. And I'm sure that if I became a true software developer again, it would help me a lot. Just seeing how sentences should be structured, how I can, what I can do with the real Polish or English language, it would help me write better C# language. So it's the same with playing piano, yeah? So playing something or writing, just learning something besides software development can make you a better developer. Now, go, Gill. Let's pretend you had a hobby. What would it be and how it would make you a better developer?
I'm gonna buy a piano.
Okay.
A trumpet.
Trumpet.
A trumpet. Okay. No, actually, there was one thing which is a bit of a crazy thing that I always said to myself. I had a friend once who was studying to become a helicopter pilot. I always said to myself, when I'm in my 40s, I'm going to start doing that as well. So that is something that I have still 2 years in front of me before I actually need to start doing that. Because being a pilot is something that I always played with in my mind. And yeah, I didn't study becoming a regular plane pilot, but having that liberty of flying with a helicopter, that's something that actually something that I still would like to do.
Okay, so that's one part of the question. The second part, how...
Oh, there's another question. Oh,
how would it make you a better software developer?
Being able to be completely away from what I do in the day job, and also in the evening and in the morning and during the night. So yeah, being able of being away and being able to unplug and say, well, let the phone ring and let the code crash and let the deadlines happen, and we'll see when we get back, and making it easy for myself to unplug and do something that I don't have to be connected and see what happens.
Okay.
And then also the fact that, like Michele says, when you study something, it's also training for your brain. Whatever you're studying, it will...
The other half of the brain.
Yeah, it will train your brain in whatever you're doing. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're
welcome.
welcome.
You guys. Okay, and have a great second day of the conference. Have a great party. and see you somewhere sometime.
Thank you.